That's weird. Hi, everyone. We're going to give people a couple of more minutes to trickle in, but we're going to try to start by 5 after at the very latest. So this show and tell from Developers Day of Igloo and Aluna is will be getting started shortly. We're going to give people a couple.
So you're on YouTube now.
If you're just joining us, we're going to give people another minute or two to join, and then we'll get started for the first Igloo Aluna Developers Day show and tell.
Looks like people are signing in.
Mm-hmm.
Great. I figure we'll give it 2 more minutes and then I'll get started. All right, I think it's time to get started. This is the first of hopefully many Igloo Aluna Show and Tell Developers Day, and Developers Days, and I want to thank you all for joining us. This is a joint a joint effort of the Analytics, Interoperability, and Linked Open Data Special Interest Working Groups. It's a bit of an experiment to do this as a Google Hangout on air, so please do give us your feedback on how this works and what it is that you might want to see different. I also wanted to mention that if you would like to give presentations at future show and tells, please get in touch with either me, John Krug, who's the coordinator of the analytics group, or Mehmet Çelik, who's the coordinator of the interoperability group. I also wanted to mention that on May 3rd, directly after, I think, Aluna, there will be the first Aluna Developers Day, and I encourage you, if you're going to Aluna, to attend that, maybe give a lightning talk to Michael North about how you can get involved in that. And then there also will be the second Igloo Developers Day following the Igloo conference in Trondheim, Norway on September 8th. So if you're interested in presenting at that, get in touch with one of us as well. I think that's everything I wanted to say, other than to thank Karsten for being our first presenter here. I'd like to introduce Karsten Kryger Hansen from Aalborg University, who's going to talk to you about enriching Primo records on the fly with WordPress. And without further ado, I'll pass that off to him.
Thank you very much, Corey. I hope everyone can hear me.
First, I want to say you should definitely join the Developers Day at Aluna. The event we had in Budapest was great. It was a true pleasure to be there. It was also a pleasure to, of course, to attend the conference, but the Developers Day was a great forum, and there was a huge involvement by all parties, and those actually also included Ex Libris, who was there as well and participated, and that was a really good day. So I'll just share my screen, and you should be able to see my screen now. So what I'm going to talk about is how we use WordPress to enrich Primo records. So just a short agenda. First, I'm going to tell you who I am, or actually it became more a slide of where I am. Some history about why we're doing this and the use case that originally started our thoughts about enriching Primo. Something about information distribution. So Primo is not the only environment for us where people find links to resources, and so we have to have a system that is easily distributable. Then I'm going to do a slight detour and talk about some HTML, some JavaScript, and so forward in Primo, just to make sure that you know the reasons and the options for actually enriching Primo. So that will be a bit more technical. And then I'm going to show you the actual implementation of WordPress in Primo. This is, of course, this is how we do it in Primo, but I actually think that this is kind of a universal method that you can use on any discovery system, whether you have Summon or Primo or another system as well. And that's, I'm also going to show you that we also use it on our web page as a single source for information. Please feel free to ask questions if possible. Otherwise, I think we'll take a Q&A for the last part. I'm working as a not a programmer. I'm not trained as such in programming. I'm trained user experience professional. Actually, I graduated from the same university as where I work now, and previously I might not have been that involved in actually using the library, but I am, of course, now. We're located in Denmark. We're a medium-sized university. We have around 20,000 students and around 2,500 staff. The university library has around 60 or 70 employees. So this is Denmark, located right there in the northern part of Europe. And I'm located actually in the city of Aalborg, a city of around 150,000 inhabitants. We also got branch in Esbjerg, that's around here, so now it's documented on YouTube how bad I'm at geography. And we also have a branch in Copenhagen. So we're spread across 3 cities, but I tend to say that our online library is the biggest branch that we have. So the case for us was that we wanted to show relevant information to the user in the right context. You can say that's a mantra. That's always what we're aiming for. We had the situation that we actually knew about. We had some information about our records that we had nowhere to tell people. For instance, that if a resource was unavailable, we kept getting emails saying EBSCO is not available, EBSCO is not working, I cannot sign in, and all these emails kept popping into our supporting staff, and we were quite frustrated actually, because we knew that it was not available, or there was scheduled downtime, or for whatever reason we would like to append some information to that specific record or group of records. We also wanted to provide hints on using a given resource. For instance, Westlaw if anybody knows the user interface of Westlaw, it might not be that intuitive to use. And we got a lot of questions and people thinking that they didn't have access to information when we couldn't link directly to a resource. And also the options for users using mobile vouchers, so that you can register your device on our network and then later use our access in an app. That wasn't an option either. And of course we could start writing all this in MARC records, but it wasn't really suitable for that, and we had to, well, for some ebook providers we would have to update 50,000 records about, for instance, mobile access options. So that wasn't a good option either. Then we thought about, well, we could make an incident list or a list of you can use these apps on your mobile phone to access some of our content. But we also knew that a lot of our users, they probably don't know who a vendor is, what's a publisher and what's a platform. They don't think about these as such. They think about actually reading the book that they find, not thinking about either of these. So for a user to map that EBSCO is down, EBSCO host is down, that actually affects a lot of databases that is available and a lot of content. That was a pretty, the user had to be very clever in order to actually use an incident list. We also wanted to make it distributable. So this is an example from another university. I've clipped out their name, but this is I think this is a recurring situation on a lot of websites. So it's not to show a bad example of something. I think it's actually quite good that they tell, but it also shows some of the problems. So they have a Ask Us service where they have actually quite recent update that EBSCO databases is not working correctly. I think it's with Google Chrome. So this is a not hidden, but it's within a Ask Us answer service. So it's kind of like an Q&A or an FAQ. But when you go to that database list and find EBSCO, there's no such information that's not working in Google Chrome. And also, if you find it in their discovery system, here I've found green file as an example, there's no information from their FAQ that you might run into a problem. So the mantra was that we want to communicate to the user in the context where they find the records. So this is a bit ahead, but this is what we have made. So we have made the options to embed. At the current moment, it uses tabs. I'll get back to other ways of showing this. So for instance, here we have an announcement that Inspect will have maintenance. This is an old record. So actually, the user can see this information when they find the Inspect record. In this case, it's the database entry. So here it's how to access Safari ebooks on a smartphone or tablet, bound actually to this specific ebook. So you can find that ebook through your mobile phone and tablet if you use their app. So this is bound to the actual book. And here is another example, and I'll get back to that later as well. That is a Primo Central record from London School of Economics and Political Science. And they have a lot of content in Primo Central, but some of their records, actually, you are required to create a free account before you can access their material. So we have just provided a small guide that you should create an account and then you can access the material. So this is something that we started receiving notifications about. I found this record. We also got this report problem tab. And and people started writing us, I found this record, but I cannot access it. Why do we have it in the search engine when I cannot access it? And we started investigating. Actually, this was the solution. We'll create an account. So instead of keep receiving problem reports, we put it in the records. As I said, we have a magnitude of systems where we would like to show this information. Primo is just one option where people can find links to our resources. We also got SFX, and my colleague Casper has written an entire new SFX menu that allows us to enrich the user interface much more than you can in the original interface. But I'm sure Casper will give a talk about that if you would want to hear more about that. We also have a database list on our website. It's based on a custom script that we wrote, extracting information from Primo, but it could be a LibGuide or any other system as well. We have a custom database list on the front page of our database list, so people can select databases from the database list and show them on the front page of the library homepage. And we also need to show the information about downtime and so forward and these. And last but not least, we have the search box. That is actually also a place where people can access our resources within a single click. So on the front of our website, I can show you. So I'm going to show you, just switch to English. So if I want to access Safari ebooks, I can just select it like this. So this is actually also a place where we would like to have this information embedded as well. Here you can see that this is actually a real one. It's not fake. So for a few hours, we didn't have access to Safari ebooks. So this is how it was shown in our type ahead on our search box on the University Library website. This was how it looked in SFX. So here you have the link, and just below you have the announcement. This is our database list, and this is an announcement that we cancel our subscription to Inspec. So that was important for the users to know. So that was put, I think it was there from the 1st of September. And we also got an ebook list where we extract a selection of ebooks based on marked records in our Aleph system. So here you also have the announcement that there's no access to Safari ebooks at the moment, and then another announcement saying that you can also access it on a smartphone or a tablet. So these are a mobile hint, and this is an announcement. So we got Primo, and we got all these other areas where we would like to actually show this information. That's why we choose WordPress, because we had to have some kind of neutral ground. We couldn't put it in Aleph. We couldn't put it in our content management system. That wasn't suitable for that kind of information. We knew WordPress from previous experience. It's also free. That's good, at least in our context. It's very feature rich. Out of the box, you get a lot of cool features, and it's very easy to extend using plugins, and that we have utilized that a lot, and it's very stable. So now I'm going to make this small detour, or whatever you would like to call it, about how you can alter the Primo user interface. This has been done without modifying almost any file on the server. At least we do that from time to time, but you can do it completely without, and using these enrichments doesn't require any access to your Primo server. It can be done completely without. So back in, I think it was 2010 or 11, we found out that we could start fixing things by putting it in our footer. So we can embed custom JavaScript that was run after the page was rendered, so we could start fixing things. So the first things we fixed was the link to the help page, to a custom page, and then it just kind of like took off. So now we have a footer with a couple of hundred lines of JavaScript making all kinds of stuff. You can embed things in Primo in, well, kind of like two ways. You can make custom tiles, so you can put your own tile into Primo, but you can also put a custom header and a footer that is configured within Primo, and then it will include these on all pages. Primo as standard includes jQuery, which is a JavaScript library that is a nice way to handle all these issues with this piece of JavaScript not working in that browser, this piece of JavaScript not working in that browser. jQuery kinds of, it takes all that burden off your shoulders, and you just need to write one command, and then it will translate into whatever kind of needy, greedy bug or feature, that's how you look at it, in a browser. And now, actually, thanks to Mehmet and his great work, it also includes another library that is built up on top of jQuery that's called jQuery Primo. So now you can make even more easy customization. I think Mehmet is the best person to talk about jQuery Primo, but that allows you to access very easy. It gives you very easy access to, for instance, data about the records on the page. Are you on full display, and all that that you have to program yourself before is now also lifted off as a burden on your shoulder, and you can now rely on this cool plugin or library in Primo as well. So what we made was a customized footer. It is located on our own web server. It's a PHP file, but it can be any file. That is just, we are a multilingual university, and our website is available both in Danish and in English. So the reason why we chose it as a PHP file was that we could use variables. So when it's called from the Danish Primo, it will respond in Danish. When it's called from the English Primo user interface, it will be returned in English. Now HTML is sent to the browser, and the browser will start rendering, and it has this document object model that is kind of like a tree. So you have all these HTML elements embedded within each other, so you can request from your JavaScript, your jQuery. You can say, well, so this is a result, so I can say give me anything that has the class result, and I want to get what's embedded in the thumbnail, I don't know. I want to get the ID of this record. So you can get quite a lot of information, and we utilize this. For instance, this is the link to the record. So that is available within the document object model. So what you do when you write your JavaScript is you say, well, for any result, please give me the link to the resource and do some magic. For instance, match it upon a list of URLs that has incidents or whatever, how you want to match it. So just, you need to know a bit JavaScript to embed this, but this is also some of the stuff that is taken care of within the jQuery Primo. So finding the ID of records, getting PNX data from the record, all that is handled within jQuery Primo as well. But the document object model is your home base for where you can start extending. So what you do is that you add elements to the document object model when the page has finished rendered. So what happens is that the user submits a query, Primo constructs a page on the server, the page is then sent to the browser, so that is kind of the initial document object model, and then it starts rendering in the browser. That includes adding CSS, and then it starts to run this JavaScript. If we need more data, for almost all records, it's a bit more limited when it comes to Primo Central records. You can get the entire record from the server. This of course takes time, but if you can only, I'll just go back, you can only act, initially you can only act in your code on what you can find in the document object model. So if there is anything else you would like to sort of know, you have to query the server to get the entire record, and then you can say, well, so this record, for instance, is actually linked to something else that I can find in the PNX, and that's how you can then enrich the record. So you're not bound to what you can find in the document object model initially. You can enrich the information for each record, but be aware that this takes time from your user interface. Of course, if you need to get 10 or perhaps even 50 records from the user interface, then of course you will eventually end up using a lot of your users' time on enriching records. So the way that we use to get external data is through Ajax. So when the page starts rendering and the JavaScript is called, it calls a URL to get external data. Due to restrictions in the security model of all browsers, we have to use JSONP. JSON is just a simple JavaScript notation of objects. I'll show you an example later, and then when we have called the external URL, we get some JSONP back, and we can start pass that JSONP within our JavaScript on the page. So how do we come about actually implementing WordPress information in Primo? So just the detour is over now, so I'll come back to the WordPress setup. We have a self-hosted version. It's running 4.4.2 now. That's the newest version, I guess. We have some plugins that we have installed on our WordPress in order to achieve what we would like. We have disabled comments because, well, we are not there to respond to comments on our blog. So, and we started receiving a lot of spam as well. So instead of putting up spam protection, we thought, well, we can disable comments because we remove a blog post when an incident is not relevant anymore. So we don't follow up with a comment on the blog post saying that this has been solved. It simply just disappears. There is an extension called JSON API that allows you to get JSON data directly from WordPress. I think this might also be achieved in the WordPress core, but I've looked into it a bit and it looks promising. I'll get back later to why you might want to use that. We have embedded something called, or installed something called Post Expirator. Excuse me. And that allows us to expire post automatically. So WordPress has the option to delay publishing of a post. So we can say, well, on Monday you should write this, you should publish this post, but we also need a way to say, well, then unpublish this post at a specific date. So this is used for if we know that there are scheduled downtime, then we don't have to find the blog post and expire it ourselves. we can use that. We can use plugin for that. We use custom fields. I'll get back to how they work. So we just needed a small plugin that actually add these custom fields to our RSS output. We have installed only as a beta a simple content template that allows you to create templates. I can show you how that works. So for instance, if you have a template for stuff you write every time that you find an incident. So for instance, if Primo Central is not working, we want to add a lot of text about alternative to finding stuff through Primo Central, and that can then be handled as a template. And then we also have what's called a theme switcher plugin that allows us to, when the block is displayed, you can include a parameter that tells WordPress what theme it should use. I'll get back to why we have that as well. I just looked in our log files, or analytics actually, and in 2015 this WordPress setup has been queried with 3 million requests last year. So in 2015 they had 3 million requests, and our server people hasn't said anything at all. We cannot see that, so it's handled very nicely. We do have some caching set up around the compilation of the PHP part, but not a caching as such installed. There are some caching plugins available for WordPress, but we haven't used any of them, so it's kind of out of the box. And then these plugins has been added. So this is how our WordPress look. I'll just switch actually to our WordPress. So this is our it's called Operation, and we have 35 posts at the current moment. I hope this works. Otherwise, I can go back to the screenshot. So, if you know WordPress, this should be quite familiar. So this is blog posts. So if a resource is not available, we go in and we write a title for the post. We add a description. You can use all the stuff that is available in WordPress out of the box. So you can add media, you can make hyperlinks and so forth. You have the option to control your publish. I'll just show you the simple content template. So I've just made a template saying, well, so article links and some resources will fail. So this is if our link resolver is down, then we can add this quite fast. You can use the options for publishing. So should it be published now, or should we delay publication? We have some categories. We have current bugs and scheduled downtime. That is for incidents that is currently going on. We have mobile and tablet. We have a category that we are not using called new or change resources. Category for old things that is no longer valid, and we also tend to archive these so they are not searchable. And we have a category for tips and tricks. So these define the category of the blog post. So is it a blog post about that you can use this on your mobile and tablet, or is it a bug, and then that then later will determine how it will be displayed within all these platforms. It's important to add a tag that is only used for identification later and linking. So for instance, I can add SFX as a tag, or I can use EBSCO. I can, well, it's not necessarily important what the tag says. It just needs to be there for linking purposes, and I'll get back to that as well. And we have the option to expire a post. The custom fields is actually the most important, because these are the ones that actually enable us to say where should this be applied. It comes with some defaults. I haven't deleted them. We can make this on single records. If we have a record in Aleph with a system number, we can identify it here, and then this blog post will only be shown on this on a record with this system number. We also have the option to identify based on Primo Central. So for instance, the London School of Economics would have this in it. So that will match all records coming from London School of Economics and Political Science. And we have the option to match on URLs, and you can write multiple. So for instance, if this was an issue on EBSCOhost, I would need to go and find the correct URL for that. I could write it like this. If it was a Google that was affected, we don't link to them as such. I could write google.uk, google.com, google.au, and so forward, and then that will be published within the RSS feed with this information attached, and you can add multiple custom fields. We have just set up a rule that states we only want one URL, and then you can write them separated with a space. So that is how we handle the blog posts. And well, otherwise it's just WordPress out of the box. So you have the options of handling users, and we have the plugins, and you can, of course, if you want to link it to an external authorization mechanism. So here you can see my draft. So you got all the features available from WordPress. So just switch back to the PowerPoint. I think I got through this one. So we have these categories, and we have these custom tags that we can apply. You can of course apply any custom tags, but these are the ones that we will actually act upon. So as I said, when the Primo page is rendered, we start running our custom JavaScript. It will make this JSONP call to an external page. That's a PHP script. What the PHP script does is that it gets the RSS feed from WordPress. That is the way that we're currently getting data out of WordPress. It works actually quite good, because RSS feed is pretty standard, and it has never failed us. Otherwise, when you start adding plugins, you might also find that something are not compatible with new versions of WordPress and so forth. So that's why we use RSS feeds. But it has some limitations, for instance, on the number of records. By the way, you have to set that up. By default, WordPress only returns, I think, 10 records from Primo in the RSS feed, but you can set that to any number. Then we convert, that is within the PHP script, we convert the RSS feed into JSONP, so we can actually parse it when it gets back to our Primo. So what it does, it's reordering the elements and join the posts according to the custom fields. So instead of that in the JavaScript we have to run through each incident to find if it affects a record, it reorders to the custom fields. So if there are multiple issues on a URL, they will be collected into a single response within the JSONP. And then we can start appending this in our Primo. So this is the same as I shown before, and here we have it in the database list. The database list queries almost the same PHP script. It has some minor modifications that is needed to show it there, because Primo at the current moment doesn't show you the title or anything of the content from the actual blog post. It only knows that there is a blog post, and then when you click the announcement, it will start finding also which blog post was this, whereas the database list actually shows, I'll just hide this more, actually shows the title of the blog post. So they are two separate PHP scripts, but they do almost the same thing. They get a list from WordPress, from the RSS feed, and converts it into JSONP, and they are a bit different. So this is an extract from the PHP script. So it gets the feed URL and it starts handling. So it loops through each item, and for each item it looks for custom fields URL, and it starts joining these in some arrays, and at the end it will return this sorry, as JSON. And if it's called as JSONP, it will of course then wrap it in a function, so it can be used cross without running into these cross-site scripting problems that otherwise will occur. So this is an example of a response. So here you can see it's wrapped, and then we apply some information. That's some basic information. So it also responds with the URL for the block, so that is not hard-coded into the JavaScript handling the blog post. So it will take this, it holds some category names and some numbers for each category. So incident category is number 74, so that is from the WordPress. The tips are category number 88, and mobile tips is category number 138. That's some information that we need in order to be able to link directly to the blog posts from Primo. So this is an example where we have some incidents on some URLs. So Informa Healthcare. What it does here is it says, well, for Informa Healthcare, if that is in any custom field of the URL, it will extract the tags that is for this specific blog post. So you are able to have multiple blog posts for a URL, and the way it will identify them when it clicks on the link in Primo will be these tags. I'll show you how it constructs a URL in a minute. So this is a Wiley record with tag Wiley, and so forward. And this is the incidents. The same goes for the tips and tricks for mobile use, and so forward. So this is the way that we can link from our tab. I'll just switch over here. So when I hit this, this is a hint that you can use this Danish dictionary on your mobile and tablet. And what Primo, or actually the JavaScript constructs, is a blog post. So this is a ground URL for our blog. Then I say, go to this tag Safari Textbooks and show the content that has the tag Safari Textbooks in the category 138. That's why I can have multiple blog posts for each here. Otherwise, that's why I don't deep link into a specific blog post. I link to all that is tagged with Safari Textbooks within the category 138, which was the mobile cat number. And of course, we can use caching to improve if we need it. We haven't needed it yet, but I think eventually we will. So I got my information from my WordPress, extracted as an RSS, converted it to JSONP, and now I've got it using Ajax to enrich the user interface. So now I can start with the actual enrichment of the Primo record. And if you remember the detour I talked about with introducing the document object model, that is the workspace when working with jQuery and selectors. So I get this back, and I said, well, start parsing this and run through all incidents and all URLs, and then create a selector that says for each result title, go and find the hyperlink that has a referrer that contains the key, and the key in this case is the Informa Healthcare, for instance, or this one, Gallup. Or if I had identified something with a system number, go and fetch, this is the prefix for our records when they are in Primo, get this specific key, and then run through all the URLs. So this is the basic. This is how it works. Run through all URLs, identify if it should be, if this is an affected records based on this tip. This is the URL to the block, so it's the tag, the value of the tag, and it links all to the category. So that's the part constructing this URL, and then add that as an attribute in Primo, and then I utilize I think it's quite old by now, and an old but still working plugin for Primo or JavaScript library made by Jakob Enang. I think it should be available on Developers Network for adding an announcement tab called Incident tab. It has a tab handler and an incident evaluator. You can find that in the documentation what all these calls mean. It actually just say that it has a tab handler, so when the tab is clicked, it will find the record ID. It will find the incident block URL for this specific. It will add a parameter that's called VP theme. That is the extension that I talked about, the theme selector. So our WordPress block is scraped. So if I go to the block with another browser, it will, however, remember my choice in a cookie. So if I open this in a new window, it would look exactly the same. But otherwise, you can instruct, you can tell WordPress which theme to use. So in this case, it has scraped all the information, so it doesn't have a logo, doesn't have anything else, because it needs to fit inside a tab. But you can link it and then add another parameter. For instance, from the database list, you might want to add VP theme equals full display, and then we'll introduce a logo and such at the top, and embed it as an iframe. And the incident evaluator is just the one evaluating if this tab should be displayed on the record or not. But that is all explained within the documentation for the EXLTA add tab, and it should be available on Developers Network. Otherwise, you can write me, and I will be happy to include this as well. So this all in conjunction will work. So when the user loads a Primo page, it will ask the blog system if there is any blog post. It will respond. In this case, it has a mobile and tablet that matches these records. This is matched in this case based on the URL. So we have a blog post that says whenever a link contains, in this case called ordbogen.com, please append a hint that can be used on an iPad, iPhone, or whatever. And this is the exact same blog post that is displayed if you find that information on our library website. I'll just find Ordbogen here. So, the exact same blog post there. That is one of the reasons why we like having it in WordPress, so we can distribute this to other platforms, including SFX. So, a little about the future development. We would like to see, and perhaps even coordinate, of course, with other universities, that maybe we should start having a centralized WordPress or whatever comes in mind system for dealing with, for instance, this London School of Economics issue. It's not to blame them. It's just that it's a quite important information for the user that they should register in order to access these records. And I think that might hold for a lot of content in Primo Central, that there might be some instructions that should follow along if you need to access it, or it could be local issues. So what we could have was to have a centralized Primo Central hosted somewhere. For instance, we need to find out something about caching, but we might be interested in hosting that. And then you could also have your own local. So if you have something that is local, for instance, the mobile actions options may not be common to all universities, then we can make a mixture. So our Primo would have our own local WordPress blog post embedded, but also the central one. So we could start sharing some knowledge and sharing some information on various record types. And the same could another university. So for instance, Edinburgh University or whoever uses Primo, they could also draw on this central resource. Of course, this needs some kind of steering, so we don't put anything in there that is not suitable, but I think it could be reasonable to have a centralized resource for this kind of information that applies to all customers. So that's why we've started to talk about if this should be more formalized. So should we have some kind of standard that says, well, that we have like a scheme for the JSON, how the JSON file is structured, so that we can use the same enrichment routines in all Primos. There's also an upcoming version of Primo with a new UI that we'll also, of course, need to think of. But could there be some kind of formalized standard way to enrich records with information? That would be quite good, I think. So we could create this shared knowledge base for WordPress, of WordPress blog posts with, for instance, Primo Central related issues that could really power the community. We are looking into if we should have some kind of personalized hiding of announcements. So if a user is no longer interested in seeing an option for using a dictionary on his Windows mobile phone because he doesn't own a Windows mobile phone, well, he should be able perhaps to hide the announcement. We do have some issues of handling DDoP records that we need to look into. That will be hopefully handled very soon. And as I talked about, we would eventually like to replace the RSS output with another output style. So using this JSON API plugin or part of the API core of WordPress to extract these blog posts, that would perhaps, I think, would be good eventually. And we're also looking into new display options. So just to show you, instead of having it in a tab, we might add it as a text. So that is actually just a matter of moving things around in the user interface. So applying it instead of applying it as a tab, we can apply it as a text. But we need to extract more information from from WordPress, because we don't get this text at the current moment. We only got the affected URLs and the tags associated. So the big question, I hope, is, can I get a copy of your code? And yes, you can. If you write to me at this email address, I will be more than happy to share the code and also give some quick introductions on where you should modify the code in order to have it to work within your Primo setting. That was the end of the slideshow. Just to start my changes to the PowerPoint. I'll stop sharing. So hopefully I will be back now in the Google Hangouts. So questions. Was it understandable?
Thank you so much, Karsten. That's really fascinating and amazing work. I'm really glad you were willing to present this to us. We're running out of time, but if you can see the Q&A panel, a couple of questions have come in.
Okay, just pop it open.
And I believe you can select one of those to answer it, and it will sort of mark where you are in the video later. But I wouldn't worry too much about that. Do you see them?
Yeah, I see them.
Okay.
If I think it should be a feature incorporated into Primo, that would be great. Exlibris has shown some interest in this, but I don't know whether they will introduce it. I think it needs a lot of flexibility, and that flexibility might not be available if it was a standard solution. But it could be an option for getting this into Primo as a standard feature. But that will also then we would need some kind of formalized way. So it could be a URL that you set into Primo, say call this URL that will respond with this JSON-P and will then be applied so and so. That could be possible. Then we have a question if we're looking into the future. I hope we are. We haven't been able to access the new user interface yet, but as soon as possible, when we get access to, we are in kind of like in between a self-hosting and a cloud solution. We have our own server, so we're not upgraded yet to the latest Primo edition. But as soon as we will be updated, we will start looking into how to apply this when the new UI. So how will this work in an Angular way of working? Of course, we need to rewrite some of the scripts to be able to handle this scrolling, so that Primo keeps adding records as you scroll along. We will of course need to know if we should look up each record again, or should we apply it somewhere in the user interface and look for it there in a hidden field or whatever. But we are looking into the future on how this can be embedded in the new user interface as soon as we get it.
Great. That's great news, because I'm also really interested in how this would work with Angular and the new UI. We're at the top of the hour, and no other questions have come in. So I want to just thank you again, Karsten. We really appreciate your being our sort of trial run of this Google Hangouts on-air thing. And I will just say again that if anyone has either questions for Karsten or would like to volunteer to do a show and tell in the future, or has feedback on how this worked and on the Google Hangout on air in general, please contact any of the special interest working group coordinators. And I want to thank you all for being here and say until next time. Thanks, everyone.